Okay, hello and welcome to BFS Wargaming. So we're having a little live chat. So today what I want to do is have a chat about the weekend's tournaments, the meta, see what's going on, see who's won, see who's lost, oh, um, all that sort of thing. Um, doo -doo -doo. Can let's have a look. So let's take a look. We're going to go and have a look at Meta Monday. Ooh, sounds a bit robotic on the mic. That's not a good thing. Is it still bad, Ed? Let me know if it doesn't clear up, Ed, and then I don't know how I'm going to try and fix this. I've done a recording pre and it sounded all right, so I don't know why it's now not good. So we're going to have a look at Meta Monday. Maybe if I hold it away a little bit more, it'll be better, Ed. So we're going to look at Meta Monday and have a look to see what the weekend's tournament results are like. All right, cheers, Ed. What I'll do is I'll have to obviously take a look at this and then maybe change the audio for the next stream. I'm not sure I'll be able to sort it out right now, but apologies if the mic or the audio isn't the best. So let's go in. We're looking at Dark Angels, Demons, and Knights. Have obviously all done well over the weekend, from what Meta Monday is saying. Great website, by the way. Go and have a look and check out Meta Monday if you haven't seen it before. Gives every Monday you get all the weekend's tournaments results and stuff like that. Okay, the mic has improved. That's a good thing. So there's another big weekend with 15 events. We've only got the data for 14 because the melee at Silo in Arkansas was still locked at the time of posting. So this can be found on Best Coast Pairings, and you can support Meta Monday on Patreon. So at Clutch City GT 24, Houston, Texas, 154 players with 6 rounds. Dark Angels took the win. Also, Chaos Demons went 6-0. This is a bit of a turnaround for the books. So Chaos Demons are obviously doing much better now. Iron Storm's obviously been a bit of a solid one for Dark Angels. I would really like to know this list. I'm sure that it's a lot of vehicles. Obviously, Dark Angels, everyone was saying weren't going to be good, but I wonder what in the Dark Angels, what's made them take Dark Angels for what vehicle have they decided to take there? Would be interesting. Got Thousand Suns up there, Custodes. Now, I think Custodes have had a pretty high win rate over the weekend. Me and Harley had a long conversation about Custodes and how he thinks they're obnoxious. And I get it with the Wardens with the 4-up feel no pain and the 4-up invuln. It's hard to chew through, but I do think there's some bad matchups for Custodes. If it's the list Harley's thinking of, it was 2 Storm Ravens and Redemptors, and Ed says the speeder that gives it stealth. Right. So yeah, there's obviously some good Dark Angels vehicles that people have been taking to make that Iron Storm better. But yeah, Custodians are obviously a durable army, so it makes them a little bit easier to play. It's not so much of a high skill army as such, if you can just tank a lot of stuff. Obviously, the higher skill you are, the better you're going to do with them. Guard 5 and 1, which is very good. Blood Angels. Where are the Necrons? No Necrons. Votan, Custodes, Death Guard, Drukhari, the old Sky Splinter. Drukhari has been doing well. Drukhari's 9th there. They've got 2 in the top 20. So, Space Wolves. Gladius Task Force. Nice. Another Dark Angels Iron Storm. Okay, and the Black Templars in at 17th. So next up, we've got the South Coast 40k Super Major in England. It's 134 players with 5 rounds. This had Guard at 7-0. Gathering this is the one that David Gaylard won. George says Azrael +1 CP is good as well. Oh yeah, throw an Azrael in there for the +1 CP is always nice for that Iron Storm Dark Angels list. So Guard at 7-0. Obviously David Gaylard, great player, and I believe he knocked Manny out actually. Again, his list I think is like Manticores, Basilisk from the list he's played previously. I don't know about his list for this. He's probably changed it up a little bit. But we've got Grey Knights, Eldari, Tau, Custodes at 5th, Thousand Suns at 6th. So really nice mixture of armies there in them top 6. Got Drukhari at 7th, Eldar at 8th, Custodes at 9th. Necrons, first Necron is at 10th with the Hyper Crypt. Death Guard 11th with Black Templars, Custodes. So again, great mix of armies. Really good to see. Grey Knights, I think, are a really solid choice at the moment with their ability to score, but obviously with other things getting a nerf like the Eldar, like Chaos Space Marines, it's really, I think, made a hole for them and made them a lot better choice. Tau have also been doing very well. So maybe with them Chaos Space Marines and Eldar coming down a bit, it's really allowed Tau to shine. Okay, we have the Toronto Winter Open 2024. So Sisters taking the win here, 6-0, an 87 player 6th round. Eldar in 2nd, Chaos Demons, again Chaos Demons up there. So Chaos Demons are obviously doing well. Again, it'll be interesting to see these lists. Ed says, don't say that, he will get an even bigger head. I'm gathering that's in reference to David Gaylard. Yeah, so Chaos Demons 5 and 1, Necrons 5 and 1. So Necron's up there on this one. Chaos Space Marines, Dark Angels again with the Iron Storm. This is a big pick, obviously, for this weekend. Drukhari, the Sky Splinter Cell, and Wolves with the Iron Storm as well. So interesting, very interesting. We're still seeing Eldar up there a lot. Eldar, I think, are going to have a really good win percentage, rate percentage this weekend. 58 players. Thousand Suns went 5-0. Chaos Demons again with 5-0. Tau up there again. Black Templars and Drukhari. This time with the Real Space Raiders, which is nice to see them using that. You know, obviously the Sky Splinter Cell's new, so people are going to use it a lot. But I did think with the changes they made to the Drukhari overall would make a difference to Real Space Raiders. So it's still looking like it could be a choice there. And then we have some Necrons, Tau, Necrons, Demons. Necrons haven't been doing amazingly, though. Interesting enough, I would have thought I'd see more Necrons higher up them lists. Maybe some of the top players aren't playing them, and maybe that's why they're not quite so high. Black Templars won this one. It was in the Czech Republic. I'm going to call it the Ogre Cub Singles 2024 because I don't know else how I would pronounce OGR. Maybe it is just OGR. 53 players, 5 rounds. So you have the Tyranids in 2nd, Black Templars, Iron Storm 1st. We've got Custodes with them Black Templars in the Iron Storm. You've got all those extra melters, which helps. Custodes 3rd, Guard 4th. See, the Guard are doing well. Harley says there's a lot of counters to Necrons in the meta at the moment. Yeah, I agree. I think that Necrons, you sort of with Necrons, there's a lot of stat check builds that can stat check armies, but then there's other armies that can deal with it. So, which is often the way with stat check armies, that you get dealt with him by one army, but another army can't deal with you. You know. and that's with the that whole Catan or Wraiths build where it's just a bit stat checky. Chaos Demons up there again. Nice to see Chaos Space Marines up there at 6th with a 4-1. Haven't seen much of them. Nice to see an Awakened Dynasty up there as well. Then we have the Goonhammer Open, UK March 2024. So it's 49 players, 6 rounds. We have a Necrons Canaptech Court 6-0. I believe this is probably Josh Roberts. Harley will confirm for me, I'm sure, on the chat. I think this is Josh went 6-0. I don't know who played Tau, but 5-1 with Tau again, very good. Sisters, I believe it was Jack Tight at Goonhammer, went 5-1. Space Wolves, the old Stormlance 5-1, and the Eldar 5-1. So again, a nice mix of armies. Nice to see Necrons actually winning the tournament. It's always good to see. Being a Necron player myself. Wheat City Open. Ed said it was Josh. Yeah, I thought it was Josh. Harley said Josh Roberts beat Jack Tight in the final. Second was Carl Grundy. Oh, Carl Grundy with the towel. Yeah. George said the variety of armies at the top of these leaderboards is such a refreshing thing to see. I completely agree, George. Like, it was so boring just seeing Eldar, Chaos Space Marines, Eldar, Chaos Space Marines, Eldar. Like, it's horrible. And I don't want to see that with anything. I don't want to see Necrons just at the top all the time because it means that there's a real bad balance to the game. And this is really, really nice to see. I think the game is in a good spot at the moment. Obviously, things can always be improved, and I'm sure there's certain units which are too good and certain units which aren't. And the internal balance of codexes can definitely be played with, but it's really nice to see a good variety. And I'm sure there's some armies that might need a bit of pushing up come the next balance status thing. So Wheat City Open, you've got Tau winning, Orcs second, which is good for Orcs because I don't think they've been doing too well since the balance status late. Eldar third again. Tyranids. The Tyranids are sort of, you're still getting those lists that are coming up there, that are getting into those top 5s and top 10s. Death Guard are always sitting in and around. Custodians again. Necrons, Space Marines. Nice. Haven't seen so many. Or I suppose we're seeing a lot of the Ironstorm with Dark Angels. So, then we've got the Cag Bash 17th charity 40k tournament in Hamilton. I'm going to guess that's Ohio. 46 players, 5 rounds. So we have the Eldar 5-0, Orcs 5-0, Chaos Demons 4-1. Again, Demons up there. I'm sure Ollie, who plays on the channel, will be very happy to see this. I told him to start playing Demons. Tau 4-1, Tyranids 4-1, Black Templars 4-1, Chaos Knights up there at 7th, which is nice to see. Then we have Wellington GT, Warzone Wellington GT in New Zealand, 44 players, 5 rounds. Custodies take the win there. Grey Knights are 4-1, Necrons 3rd, Eldar, and Imperial Knights with Dark Angels Ironstorm in 7th. Really, really interesting to see how many Dark Angels Ironstorm have done well. Then we have the Big Beef Beatdown. Now that is the name of a tournament, isn't it? That's, they're not messing about at Big Beef Beatdown. It's in Omaha. So 31 players, 5 rounds. Imperial Knights take a win, 5-0. Excellent to see. 4-1 with the Votan, Drukari. 4-1 with Sky Splinter Cell. Again, Necrons, Death Guard, Black Templars. Then we have Gallicus Great Golden Gauntlet. Nancy, France, 28 players. Says WTC scoring found on mini headquarters. So Black Templars take the win there. Eldar in second. Then Rumble in the Rockies is in Calgary, Canada. 27 players, 5 rounds. Guard take another win at 5-0. Grey Knights at 4-1. Again, Necrons third with the Canaptech Court. Interesting. Custodies, Drukari, Death Guard. Then we have Haivat Pahat Jar Korjak GT at Jarvenpää, Finland. I've murdered that. I don't. I'm sorry if that's your language. I absolutely killed that. 24 players, 5 rounds. Again, Blacks, Templars, Ironstorm are doing well. Guard, Orcs. Oh, Orcs again there. Um, so then we have the Carnage Season 2, Immortalis, Dark Angels 5-0, Custodes 4-1, and the Necrons 4-1. So let's have a look to see what the takeaways are. Dark Angels with 26 players had a 56% win rate with their true power, but their true power is in the double Storm Raven. Okay, double Storm Raven Iron List. 15 of their players took it this weekend and had a 66% win rate. Both tournament wins that Dark Angels got this weekend, including the biggest event of the weekend. Wow. Check out Wargames live final from this weekend to see and put the hurt on the Custodes list. Ed said, "You just tried to pronounce that, and my furniture started to levitate." Yeah, it literally sounded like I was doing some sort of curse. So Tau are ascendant just before their codex release with a 56% win rate and tournament win. So Tau was sort of, sitting, I think, around the sort of 48% win rate before the balanced data slate. So this has really rocketed them up. 32% when at least X and 1. They seem to be a great anti-meta pick at the moment. Space Marines are the worst faction in the game with a 41% win rate and only 3 of their 45 players making it to the top tables. Yeah, but weirdly, Dark Angels Ironstorm, if you've taken that, seems to be really good. Or Black Templars. But are Dark Angels and Black Templars in this Space Marine, is Space Marines not included in Dark Angels and Black Templars? But they're all playing Ironstorm, so it seems like we're almost playing the same faction. But then I suppose you've got the picks from the Storm Ravens, and you can take the extra melter on the Black Templars, so they are different. But Black Templars finally won an event. 52% win rate with Black Templars. Aeldari has still got a 54% win rate, Harley. Harley was trying to have an argument with me that Aeldari were really hard to play before or they were a high skill army before the balanced data slate, and I was like, like they were. You had to know the army to play them well. I agreed, but I wouldn't have called them a high skill. I think they're a lot higher skill now. But interesting, there's still, if you're a good player, you can still do really well with Eldar. Look, 54% win rate is massive. And they also won an event. Orcs are struggling. Need their new codex soon to deal with this meta, it seems. Only 3 of their 33 players went X and O, X and 1, as they had a 42% win rate this weekend. 42% is pretty low, but it's only one weekend. Ed says Eldar, MSU, Custodes, Tau, and Guard are my top armies. Yeah, I'm definitely not arguing with that. I think Necrons are up there as well. I think Necrons are a widely played faction, and I feel like a lot of the top players aren't playing them at the moment. Like apart from obviously Josh Roberts is playing them, but I do think they're up there. I think, although Demons seem to be doing well. The Space Marines won't work until they make a divergent chapters. Only take their own supplement attachments. Yeah, because then you can. I agree, George, because at the moment they're trying to balance a massive array, and I think that you could make the actual Space Marine Codex better, and then all of the Dark Angels and Black Templars and all of them have to take their own ones, So I agree. I think they really need to sort that, and I'd like to see White Scars have their own specific rule, like they did with the supplements. But we will see. Ed said Custodes, Bodies, Necrons now. Yeah, certain builds, I still think that I reckon my list is alright in Custodes. maybe. I think that I can do alright into Custodes. Still got to play them. I haven't played them for Custodes for a while, but I think I can beat Custodes. Unless they just roll every 4 up, then I probably can't. So, Sisters won the third largest event of the weekend and had 28 players. A healthy chuck of and a growing player base for them. Had a 53% win rate. 53% win rate of Sisters is really nice. So what was Ed's picks? They were Eldar, Custodes, Tau, and Guard. So Imperial Knights, 50% win rate. I think Knights are probably are not in a bad place. They're all right, Knights, with all their points drops and stuff. Trouble is with Knights and a Custodes, you can easily make them, by some small changes, you can make them overpowered quite easily, and you can make them really bad quite easily. So they are hard armies to balance because they're so elite. So Custodes is one of the best armies in the game, but have some rough counters. With a 54% win rate and 14 of their 67 players, 21% again X9 and X1. They won one event this weekend. The Golden Boys are once again second most played faction, and that is the thing with Custodes, is they have a big player base because they're so easy to collect and paint. I think 54% is probably a little bit low in terms of what I mean by that is if you want to rate the faction, because they've got such a big player base, their win rate, they're probably going to have more lower skill players, so their win rate is, should be probably lower than that. So it'll be interesting to see how Custodes come out, but they do have some good counters. Then we have Guard. They had a great weekend winning 2 events, having a 51% win rate. Interesting enough, only 4 of their 43 players went X and O and X and 1. This roller coaster of theirs is wild. One thing to note, they seem to be doing best in England on UKTC terrain. Why? Question mark. So I think I can answer this. I think that the out of line of sight shooting works better on UKTC terrain than it does on the GW terrain that you see in America. Which is nice to see the different metas and different how the game plays depending on terrain and stuff like that. But I think that you can hide their manticores and then basilisks and things a lot easier on UKTC terrain because of the big L's and things like that. So I think that's the reason that Guard are doing better on that. Interesting as well. I think Guard seems to be one of those armies. It almost seems like they're quite a high skill army at the moment in terms of if you look at their how many players are going X and O and X and 1 is quite low compared to the 43 players are playing them. So that's really interesting. Or maybe they have some good counters that they find hard to deal with. I know they're obviously good into Eldar MSU because it's all that out of line of sight shooting can take them down. Then we have Chaos Demons, who have a 57% win rate. Wow. 7 of their 30 players made top tables. They seem to be finding their way. Really interesting this is. I'd be interested to see what some of these lists are. I hope there's a big variation because I love variation. I don't like to see the same list from an army all the time. From a faction, sorry. I like to see variations. So hopefully people are coming up with some crazy mad stuff and it's working. So let's have a look at the data table. So this is the weekend win percentage, and then this is the 5-week win percentage. So the 5 weeks, I'm assuming, is from the data slate. So Chaos Demons at the top, we have 57. So in the 5 weeks, they're at 50%. So it's nice. Maybe they just had a bit of a strong weekend. So interesting to see how that progresses. Dark Angels, 56% win rate this weekend. 50%. How long have we been playing Dark Angel Codex? Is it 2 weeks? So that's a 50%. It's an interesting thing. We'll have to see how the land lies with that. Although it says the Unforgiven Task Force is 67% win rate this weekend. And the Iron Storm is 66. That's really interesting. Really interesting. But over the 5 week, it's 48%. Maybe someone's found some. Oh, there was only 2 players playing that, to be fair. 15 players playing the Iron Storm. Tau, Kayun, detachment, 56% at the weekend, 50% over the 5 weeks, which is cool. Adeptus Custodes, Harley's Boogeyman. God, he done some complaining about these yesterday, I tell you. So, yeah, high player count, 67, 193 wins, 355 games. So 54% win rate, and it's a 54% win percentage over the 5 week period, and they've had a tourney win. So really interesting results here. And then we have the Leagues of Votan with the Oathbound, 54% win rate again this weekend. After all them points decreases, it is a 49% over the 5 week period though. So interesting to see how that plays out. I think the Leagues of Votan are probably in a nice balanced place at the moment. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. Ed, what are you playing at tournaments at the moment? If you're still in the chat. Then we have the Eldar Battle Host, 49 players, 54% win rate, and a 51% over the 5 weeks. So they're not sitting, too high, Eldar. They're probably about right. Let's see how that pans out. Okay, next up, Sisters of Battle. 28 players. They've got a 53% win rate and a 53% over the 5 week period. So that's nice for Sisters of Battle. Obviously, it's not too high. It's not over that 55%. So not too bad at all. Any views on World Eaters? We'll get down to World Eaters in a second, and we'll talk about them. Alias 2002. So Necrons, 82 players, 53%, 53% over the 5 weeks. So they're sitting above that 50%, but I don't think it's crazy. I do think there's a couple of units that are too strong in the Necrons. And what I mean by too strong, I think that the Catans are just a little bit underpointed. I think knock them up a few points. Maybe the Wraiths, but again, I don't think it needs loads because the Wraiths output is pretty terrible. So we have the Canaptech Court at a 57% win rate at the weekend, 55% overall. Hypercrypt at 54, 53% overall. Also, I love that Eldar players were whining about having their army gutted and how they weren't going to be able to play the game anymore. And then boom, 54% win rate. Yeah, I get you. Like at the end of the day, I think a lot of the top players knew that they were still very playable. There's still so many good picks in the Eldar index. There's so many good units. And the rules are just still very, very good. You can still get a lot of manipulation out of them. Even after all the nerfs they've taken, it's just they're just a higher skill army now, but still very, very playable and still usable. The Awakened Dynasty is down at 43 and 47%, which is interesting. I do think the Awakened Dynasty has got some play. I think they've got great stratagems. I think the army rule is good. I'd be interested to. I think this could be higher. Obviously, Hypercrypt is just great for point scoring. And obviously, people can use those monoliths and the Catans. And then Canaptech Court with the Wraiths and the Doomstalkers is great. I think most Eldar players would agree with the nerfs were fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Eldar players can be complaining too much. They've had the last 6 months pretty good. And I don't think, and they're still, they still haven't taken nerfs so badly that they're, a dumpster fire. They're still very good. Like Chaos Space Marines, on the other hand, probably took the harsher nerfs than what Eldar did, and I'd say Eldar were the bigger problem over the last 6 months. So I was surprised to see them go like quite harsh on Chaos Space Marines, but not that harsh, as harsh as they could have done on Eldar. Okay, but I don't want to see any faction be unplayable. I think we want every faction to be playable and have a chance to win games, or tournaments even. So yeah, the Obessence Phalanx and the Annihilation Legion, they're just not great. We need some keyword changes for the Obessence Phalanx just for a start. Okay, Black Templars, 52%. They're still up there. Black Templars have done very well. With the Ironstorm, they've got a 72% win rate at the weekend and 65% over the last 5 weeks. And I think this comes down to what George was saying in the chat about we need the detachments for the Space Marines to be for the Space Marines, and then all of the supplements like the Templars, the Dark Angels, and Space Wolves should have their own detachments. You know, have a choice of a few, because it's very hard to balance when you're being able to cherry pick from so many codexes. So we could lift up the Space Marines, the normal Space Marines, and then have a nicer and then have different detachments for the others. CSM were a bigger problem over the last data slate, won all the big events you can mainly think of. Yeah, I agree, Harley. I definitely know what you're saying. Towards the last data slate, CSM were probably the bigger problem, but it's just the fact that Eldar got away with so much for so long, and CSM seemed to take the brunt of that. I don't know necessarily why. Alias says, I remember Lutin making a community post about how his Eldar army he was building was absolutely ruined and that he wanted his Incarn to do ridiculous amounts of damage because law. I mean, if we went off the law of 40k, everything would do so much damage that everything would die turn one. George, can't really put Eldar points up like they did with CSM. Wouldn't have anything left. Yeah, I totally agree. They couldn't put so much the points up, but they could have been harsher on the rules. They could have been harsher on fate dice. They could have been harsher on the stratagem, phantasm. There's a lot of things they could have been harsher on. Eldar is a feels bad army as well as they are normal broken at some point. Yeah, I mean, obviously it feels bad when people can do stuff in your you know, like the Phantasm stratagem is a feel bad stratagem because you'll feel like you're constantly trying to make up for what they're going to do with this Phantasm stratagem, and you know, it was extremely hard to play against. Better now that it's a bit more limited, but Phantasm was just so hard to play against unless you had like a Chaos Space Marine like Rush type army, I think. So, or you have something that can teleport a lot like Grey Knights. Next, we have the Astra Militarum, 51% win rate this weekend and 45% over the 5 weeks. Such a strange army, Astra Militarum, because I do think they're really a really good army, but they're not really getting the results. Obviously, David Gaylord done well this weekend, and there's other people that have done well with them this weekend, but they're not getting the sort of results that I thought they should be getting. You know, because the outline of sight shooting isn't bad. They've got the Bullgrins to sort of help hold the mid board. They're durable. They've got a lot of like little chaff units for scoring. To me, it seems like they should be really good. You've got the Kassakin and the Chimeras if you want some transport. Like, I don't know. In my head, I feel like they should be doing better than what this percentage says, and maybe that's the players that are playing them, maybe the skill of the players. Maybe there's a lot of low skill Astra Militarum players or Imperial Guard players. We have the Knights, who are sitting pretty well, 50%, 49% over the 5 weeks. I think they're in a good place. Like I say, you don't want to boost Knights up too much. You'll be in real issues. Okay, Harley's giving me some feedback on this. It's because of the list difference. The meta is Bullgrin and Kassakin with indirect, and most of the noobs play tanks and just lose and bring the win rate down. I see what you're saying. So people aren't playing the right list because they want to play their Lehman Russes, they want to play their Rogel Dawns, they want to play their you know, that sort of thing. And so you're saying basically is that the meta list with the outliner, so the indirect shooting, the Bullgrin and the Kassakin is a good list, but a lot of players are playing Rogel Dawns, which maybe aren't aren't good or aren't good in the meta or whatever. So that's why the win rate is low because of the list they're taking. Very interesting. Obviously, when we talk about um, factions and stuff, sometimes we can get fixated on one list and one build, and we're like, yeah, that's really strong, but it's only that build that's strong. So it's an interesting thing. Maybe the index for the Astra Militarum needs some internal balancing. The Imperial Guard is like Schrodinger's win rates right now. Okay, so next up, Space Wolves, 50 and 48%. Space Wolves are a strange old army at the moment. I feel like they're not very Space Wolfy. I know you have the what they called the Wolves. What they're called? You know what I'm talking about with the riders. Ah, can't can't remember their names. But I think they're great, and you can push up the board with them, but they don't really do horrendous amounts of damage. Um, Not that they should necessarily do horrendous amounts of damage, but they're all right into sort of like your infantry. But I feel like Space Wolves, it's just so sad what they've done to Wolfen and Wolfen Dreadnoughts. I really hope when they bring out um, the supplement that they get the Wolfen and the Wolfen Dreads get some love and they have a better detachment and things like that. Because at the moment it's I just feel like they're not really being played how I feel Space Wolves are. Drukari, they got the the Sky Splinter Assault, and the Real Space Raiders. So we have 50% and 48% with the Sky Splinter Assault. So sitting about mid, which is really nice to see. Obviously, the Real Space Raiders need some love, so it'll be interesting to see if they give Real Space Raiders some love in the when they actually do bring out the Codex, and hopefully they'll bring them up and make them better. For the Real Space Raiders, and obviously have the other detachments, gives more options really. Because I think the way they do the pain tokens on the Real Space Raiders could be boosted, so they get more pain tokens. I think could really help. Wolfram spam for the win, George says. So cheap. Yeah, they are, but they're like the fact they've got no OC that makes no sense really, and the fact that they're just sad, aren't they? You look at Death Watch, you've got these amazing hammers. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Death Watch are great, but the hammers are great. And then you look at Wolfen hammers and you're like, just a tear rolls down the cheek. Thunderwolf Cavalry, that's what I was trying to see. So Harley says the Meta Space Wolf list is Wolfen spam and Thunderwolf Cav spam. Yeah. So maybe I'm wrong and I'm a bit out of touch with this. I'd love to see how that works. It's just loads of Wolfen. It's just the fact there's zero AC and like you can't hold anything with them. I know you just probably ram them down people's throats, but yeah, it just seems a little bit. I don't know. I feel like Wolfen should hit hard. Wolfen should do something. I'd be really interested to see how it works. If anyone in the chat knows of or if you watch this afterwards and in the comments, if there's any links to people playing that on battle reports, I'd be really interested to see it. So next up, Grey Knights. Grey Knights have been doing well. I think Harley's been playing the Grey Knights. He's been doing alright with them. So they have a 47% win rate this weekend and a 50% win rate overall. So sitting sort of in the middle, which is nice. I did think Grey Knights were going to get better with Chaos Space Marines coming down, Eldar coming down. So really nice to see them doing all right. I'm really interested to see what their faction, when their codex comes out, what the new detachments, what different detachments they've got. I think that would be really interesting. Harley says the OC doesn't matter. You run them at people, move, block, and stuff like that because of how cheap they are. Okay, and you can trade small units with them because they're cheap points costs. Okay, what is the point cost now of a Wolfen? Like 12 points or something. But again, I just don't think Wolfen are like meant to be elite. They're not meant to be chaff, aren't they? That's what I'm saying. It doesn't feel right. Like what they're doing doesn't feel right to me. Then we have Thousand Suns, who are also not doing too bad. Only a 46% win rate, but I think good players can do well with Thousand Suns. They're at 49% overall, so sitting pretty well over the last 5 weeks. 16 points for a Wolfen. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're they're fine, and that's how. I'm just not sure if Space Wolf players are loving that, but Death Guard. Death Guard only got 45% win rate over the weekend and 47% over the last 5 weeks. Maybe this whole Brigand thing has hit them a little bit hard. The old Brigand points rise. How many people are playing? Like, it's 52 players, which is quite a lot of players. And how many people are playing Morty? Like, is Morty good with the? Is that Morty and the Plague Burst Crawlers? Is that too much of a points cost for what it does? I don't know. It's good against Catan though. They're a different units edition, basically. Yeah, I get that. Like, obviously, they've gone from being like an elite killer slash anti tank to like a chaff killer, and they have a different job now. World Eaters. This is what you wanted, Alias. World Eaters, 27 players, 62 wins. I think that's the wins, isn't it? Yeah, wins. 62 wins, 138 games played. So 45% win rate and 43% over the last 5 weeks since the balanced data slate. So World Eaters took a hit in the balanced data slate, and I thought to myself, like, I know they'd been doing all right and they'd got some wins. I know Anthony Vanello was doing really well with them, and they got some points decreases that I wasn't sure they particularly needed, and I'm not sure if they thought what they thought is, oh, if we take CSM down and we take Eldar down, World Eaters are gonna rush to the top. But actually, what I think probably has happened is World Eaters probably struggle into Custodes. Harley said he thinks World Eaters struggle a bit of a one-trick pony. Yeah, and I'm wondering if they're struggling into stuff like Custodes, because if you put a load of World Eaters into Custodes and they bounce, the Custodes, and then Custodes got fight first if they want on one unit, like they're going to start carving them World Eaters up. So I actually think, one, they probably didn't need the points increases, and two, because Custodes have now risen to the top of like the player base, basically, that means that World Eaters have gone down. So actually, probably their World Eaters could have stayed at the points they were at, and it'll be interesting to see what they do at the next balance data state and how this comes out. But 43% win rate is a huge loss. Also, I think people using wrong lists, like you don't want Angron, you want max 8 bound. Harley said, yeah, I don't know. I haven't played World Eaters and looked enough into them. I mean, Angron is a bit of a beast, though, isn't he? He's pretty good. But maybe that's too much of a point sink. Okay, next up, Blood Angel. So Blood Angel's got a. I'm interested to see what was the Blood. Is it the first company now? Or is it Sons of Sanguinius? This got a boost. 46% win rate over the weekend. 43% over the last 5 weeks. Again, it's just all about the Ironstorm, isn't it? Gladius is doing all right with Gladius, but Ironstorm 73%, 65% win rate. 73% with Blood Angels over the weekend. There's only 2 players, admittedly. 65% over the 5 weeks, though. That's pretty nice. But yeah, Ironstorm definitely seems to be top pick for Space Marines. I thought Vanguard was like up there, but not necessarily for Blood Angels, but it doesn't seem to be performing as high. Chaos Knights, 45, 46. Maybe, I don't know what's going on with Chaos Knights at the minute. I mean, obviously their Brigands went up. I feel like Chaos Knights have got that army that some armies you won't be able to deal with them, and then some armies will just get absolutely smashed. Harley said he has less of a chance of coming back now because of the enhancement for. Yeah, that's very true. I forgot about that nerf. So the nerf to the bringing Angron back, it's way less likely to happen now. So that could also be a contributing factor to that. Plus the points decreases is quite a big nerf to them. So um, maybe they just need them points lowering back and then see where they sit with like you say these big 8-bound builds and stuff like that. So yeah, Chaos Knights is an interesting one. Um, they were being played in quite competitively, especially at teams and stuff like that. It's interesting to see how they come out of the wash after the next balanced data slate. Chaos Space Marines, how the mighty have fallen. What have you done to them, Harley? It's all your fault saying they were too good. So 44% win rate over the weekend, 43% over the last 5 weeks since the data slate. They have taken a slap, haven't they? They really have. I think it's a real shame. I think they went a bit overboard on the nerfs. I think definitely what needed to happen to the Curse Occultist definitely needed to happen. I think this whole marks and the 18-inch obscuration, I think the 18-inch obscuration should go back to 12 inches. See how that plays out. See if that makes any difference. But yeah, I'm interested to see how that works. But yeah, definitely from being basically the top army before the data slate, they're now right down the bottom. Let's all blame Harley. It's Harley's fault. Okay, Genes to the Cult. Genes to the Cult, 44% win rate over the weekend, 45% over the last 5 weeks. Now, I think Genes to the Cult can be good, but I think there's probably just a lot of counters to them. And also, if you're not playing them in a very, very particular way, then they don't do so well. It'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing them getting a codex, getting a lot more options to how they can play the game. Yeah, I'm really interested to see that. Maybe they need some points decreases somewhere. The trouble is, when you give an army a rule like you can bring our units back as much as you want, giving them points decreases is a bit like, oh. George says, yeah, it was a bit much. All the changes were good. He's talking about Chaos Space Marines, but not all at once, which I totally agree. I think they just went a bit overboard on the amount of changes. I think they could have left the marks alone, left the obscuration alone, done the rest, see how the cookie crumbled. What they didn't want to do is not do enough and then them still be sitting at the top. But I think they went overboard. So Adeptus Mechanicus, another one of Harley's armies, not doing so great. These Harley won't play them because of their 43-42% win rates here. But no, we obviously know that I think Adeptus Mechanicus needs some help. I'd like to even maybe see some of their detachments changed, like some rules. Maybe they need a little bit of a buff, help that internal codex balance. Because if you just give them loads of points drops, they just become a stuff army, which is a bit boring in it. But I do think they have some really interesting rules in some of their data sheets, like the old Vanguard reducing your OC and stuff like that. I think they really can be a really cool army, and you can play them really interestingly. But the Explorator Maniple, played by 2 players, has a 55% win rate over the last 5 weeks. So I don't know what the Explorator Maniple does. Harley, do you know what it does? Let me know what the rule is for this Explorator Maniple, because I've only seen the Skitari Hunter cohort played. I think is the Maniple the no? There's the Rad. Where's the Rad one? The Rad where you do mortal wounds in deployments. Cohort Cybernetica and Data Sum. Maybe the Explorator and Maniple is the one in the mortal wounds in the deployment zone. But 55% is nice there. But obviously the other ones aren't doing so well. Okay, next up we have the Tyranids. I think the Invasions fleet seems to be the top pick. A lot of people talk about Vanguard, but it's not doing so well. I think there's some rules in there that are kind of nice. Unending Swarm is also not doing bad. But overall, 42% over the weekend and 44% over the 5 weeks is not good. Okay, so the exploit mana pool, Harley said, is you choose an objective. I'm gathering you choose an objective in your command phase or at the beginning of the battle round, and you get reroll ones to wound against anything on it. It doesn't seem that strong. Is there like some really strong strats in there or something that we don't know about? Because, I mean, obviously, there's only 2 players that have played a few games, 11 games, and you've got 55% win rate. You've got 6 wins, so it's not a massive group of data, but it just seems strange that over the 5 weeks they're at 55%. But yeah, maybe that's just a bit of an anomaly in the data, I think. Yeah, so Tyranids not sitting pretty. I'm not sure what needs to happen for Tyranids to make them better, because there is a lot of Tyranids finishing in like the top 5s and the top 10s, in each tournament. Like, I was a Tyranid player there. I was a Tyranid player. I was a Tyranid player there. Harley rates cohort hunter much better. Hunter cohort look much better in the AdMech, which I've seen and seems it does seem a lot of it. It seems the best detachment to me. So then we have the Tyranids, which we've gone through, not sitting great. Orcs are again have taken a right downward turn. What do you guys in the chat think the reason for the Orcs fall from grace is? They're sitting at 42% of the weekend, of 47%, which 47% win rate isn't bad. You know, you're looking at sort of like half the people are going 3 and 2, half of them are going 2 and 3. So it's not horrendous, but is it the meta now? Is the new meta just not good for Orcs? Because I don't remember them having loads of point increases. I know they took a couple, but I didn't think they were like in real trouble in terms of when I looked at the point changes. Is it because the good players have dropped off when they've still got 33 players? Like it's not a small percentage. But maybe they're just really struggling. Maybe Custodes, again, it's not a good matchup for them, probably. Maybe the rise in Custodes keeps a lot of win percentages down. Let me know what you think in the chat, guys. Space Marines. 41%, 40%. Yeah, Space Marines. What I'd like to see for Space Marines, and I actually think it could really, really help them. Because if you look at all the Space Marines that are doing well, or the detachments that are doing well, it's usually Ironstorm. Vanguard's not too bad. But also it's Ironstorm with Dark Angels, Ironstorm with Blood Angels, Ironstorm with Black Templars, or Gladius with Space Wolves. You know what I mean? It's all of these ways. And don't get me wrong, Space Wolves need something other than their detachment. But what I'd like to see is I'd like to see if you take a character. So, for instance, if you take Khosrow Khan as a White Scars player, you get an extra layer of rules, not a whole layer of rules, just a rule. So, for instance, like their 8th and 9th edition thing was you get +1 damage on the charge. Great rule. I don't think it's going to break White Scars. You know, a few Outriders will be getting damaged too. You know, it makes things a little bit more killy. You can sort of play that combat a little bit better because Space Marines combat isn't great at the moment. And it would only be for White Scars. And then you could do the same for, obviously, find a rule for each one. And that is really what I want to see. And I actually think that could really help these win rates and then make the Space Marine chapters have the ones that are in the codex have more character, have more flavor, and makes them playable, and people want to then play them. Because that's what I find with my White Scars is I'm like, I'm just playing Space Marines. I'm not really playing White Scars. The only thing that makes it White Scars is because I've got Khosrow Khan in there. But other than that, it's just White Scars. It's just Space Marines with a different detachment name. And I'd really like to see that flavour come back to Space Marines. And then we have the poor old Death Watch. Now, Death Watch really got forgotten about in the data slate. I really think they were concentrating on a lot of other stuff, and they went, don't worry about Death Watch. We'll sort them out later. And I think Death Watch, I think the Black Spear Task Force is actually good. I think the issue is the Death Watch. What are they called? The kill teams. Are they called kill teams? Probably it's kill. Yeah, kill teams. They're just overpriced. They put them up back when you had like Oath of Moment with rerolls to hit, rerolls to wound, and you had the strats, and they changed the strats to the bolters, and they never really adjusted any of the points costs for this. And I think it's a little bit sad for Deathwatch players who want to play Deathwatch. I think I was a little bit disappointed that they got overlooked in the last balanced data slate, and I think they could have done some kill team points decreases. Because 40%, they're basically sitting at a 2 and 3 win rate, which is not dreadful, but I mean 34% with the Black Spear Task Force actually, so that's getting worse. Yeah, I'd really like to see them get a little bit more love. I mean, they only had 3 players playing them at the weekend, but I'd like to see a little bit more love for Deathwatch, a few points decrease on these kill teams, and I actually think that task force isn't bad, and I think they could actually be pretty good. George says the issue is with free war gear, no one takes bolters, and the 3 out of 6 stratagems makes bolters slightly better. ... Great. I'm gathering that was sarcasm there, George. I agree. I know what you're saying. I think one of the issues with the Black Spear Task Force is when they wrote it, it wasn't what the rules have changed. They've now made it for bolters only and all that sort of thing. So actually what they could have done is probably made those stratagems a little bit stronger for bolters. And then, and so made it really like, oh, you can really build into the bolters. But because it was sort of for everything and it was super strong when it wasn't just for bolters, and then they changed it, and it's sort of messed up the internal balance of the index, because obviously with free war gear you've got better options than bolters, and that is the issue, isn't it? So yeah, or maybe I don't know. They need to look at. I think if they just bring the price down of the kill teams, it does become better. And then maybe there is, if you've got that sort of volume you can take where them stratagems become good on them bolters, then and you've got the volume of guys to take in the kill teams that actually you could then put out that volume. Maybe that is then good. And you've got a bit of like, when I've played George, it seems like he could do with one extra unit, maybe that then makes things a little bit more playable. Also, you've got to think there was some things that went up with Space Marines, such as the Interceptors, which I know that Deathwatch players were playing. Well, every Space Marine player is playing because their 3-inch drop's so good, and Scouts and some other things. So maybe if they could really build into those kill teams, if they came down, then they wouldn't need the Interceptors and the other stuff, and they'll probably still take the Catalyst Assassin because why wouldn't you? But yeah, so that is me for today. I hope you've enjoyed this little live stream. I was really interested to talk through the data. Big thanks to Meta Monday for sorting all this data so that I can go through it. Fantastic website, gives you a little snapshot of the weekend. Also, that data, the win percentage since the last data slate. It's really, really nice to see. It's really well set out website, so definitely take a look at this, guys. Old Be'lakor against some Chaos Knights. So I hope you all have a good week, and I will be back on this week on Thursday for another live stream. Just having a chat. Hope maybe GW might drop something interesting. I'll be on at 4 o'clock again. So if you want to come on and chat, please do. And I will see you in the next. Well, I've got a tactical video coming tomorrow at Tuesday, and then I'll be on Thursday for the live stream. There'll probably be some shorts. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the